Let's go to number 3, Ohio State. They're a 14-point favorite on the road at Wisconsin. The Badgers trying to get things going a little bit after what was a pretty nice finish to the game last week, albeit the first 3 quarters left a little to be desired. It's going to be 7:30 Eastern time on NBC. Wisconsin, just to take into account where this program is at right now, Wisconsin has been favored in 45 straight home games entering this week. That's tied with Oklahoma for the longest active streak in the FBS. The last time Wisconsin was a home dog was actually the last time they hosted Ohio State. That was back in 2016. Currently, a couple touchdowns underdog. That's not going to flip come game time. This is the largest home underdog role for Wisconsin since 1997. They were also a 14.5-point dog that day. They lost to number 1 Michigan by 10, so they did cover. So if the line moves even further in favor of Ohio State, then it could potentially become the biggest underdog role for Wisconsin since 1991. That was against number 17 Iowa. They lost by 4 as an 18-point dog. Now, Luke Fickell, a lot's been made of his allegiances to Ohio State, and he's trying to downplay that. Of course, he spent a lot of time at Ohio State, was the interim coach in 2011, but I think he kind of broke through last week as far as reaching his team. They're starting to learn how to finish, and that was what he had talked about all throughout the offseason. It's what he talked about all the way through the first half of the season, and then look at what the program had done in one-possession games prior to his arrival, and including the first half of this season, they were 1-6 in the last 2 years in one-possession games. Well, they figured out a way to get it done. They're down 21-7 entering the final quarter against Illinois. They scored 18 unanswered with the 3-yard pass to Braden Locke to Rucci to get the largest comeback in Big Ten play since 2018. Couple questions in this one. Can Braylon Allen get things going on the ground? He's been awesome, but it's really about the century mark. In the 4 games in which he's gone over 100, Wisconsin's 4-0. In the 19 career games he's gone over 100, they've been really, really good. He's got the most 100-yard games in the FBS since 21. Now, they're running the ball pretty effectively. 180 yards per game on the ground. This is third best mark in the Big Ten. They've really struggled complementing that run game with the passing game that was supposed to be invigorated with the addition of Phil Longo from North Carolina. He's the OC. To make things worse, Tanner Mordecai was out with a broken hand. That means Braden Locke has had to step in, but it's been really tough. It's really tough. When you look at what they have to go against this week, what could Penn State do pretty well prior to last week? They could run the football. They have 2 great running backs, Penn State does, and they are counted for just 49 yards on 26 attempts. Ohio State is obviously going to sell out completely against this Wisconsin rushing attack and force the passing game to beat them. And I'll tell you this, I don't think Wisconsin can beat Ohio State throwing the football. I mean, they were supposed to, come in and bring this offense into the 21st century and to kind of complement that power run game, and it's been really bad up to this point. Relatively speaking, they're 83rd in passing yards per game, and they're throwing the ball 10 times more, not 10x, but 10 times, 10 attempts more per game than they did last year. So the passing game has yet to take off, and part of the reason why is they haven't been able to separate on the perimeter. That's a big question. Can they create separation against Ohio State's DBs? Because when I watched the Penn State game last week, I know Penn State's wideouts aren't great, but they weren't able to consistently separate at all. So Drew Aller had to force things into some tight windows and was pretty inaccurate on a few of those tight window throws. Well, that's been a huge issue so far this year for Wisconsin, creating separation and to make sure that their quarterback, whether it's Locke or Mordecai before him, has a little bit of a window and a margin for error when delivering the football. Now, I'm optimistic with what I've seen from Will Pauling in the slot. Maybe that will eliminate some of the headaches. He's been solid, and over the last 3 weeks, he's really come into his own, averaging 10 yards per catch and 23 catches in the last 3 weeks. So he's doing some nice things, but I don't know, man. That's going to be a tall task to be able to create consistent separation against Ohio State. And how many points does Ohio State need to score to win the game? That's, I think, a big question mark. And can Wisconsin slow down Marvin Harrison? I mean, he has been terrific the last 3 weeks. 3 consecutive games over 100 yards and a receiving touchdown. And another game like that, which I think is highly likely and probably probable, It would be the second longest streak in the Big Ten in the last 15 years. Now, in 2019, David Bell did it. He did it in 5 straight games. And then 2013, Steve Hull did it in 4 straight games. So what does this really come down to? How can Wisconsin win the game? If Ohio State plays a clean game, which they have up to this point, they'll be fine. They'll win the game. But if Ohio State turns it over and can't, for whatever reason, contain Wisconsin's run game, then it could be a little bit of a difficult spot. Now, all signs point to Travian Henderson being back. All signs point to Emeka Egbuka being back. So I just don't think there's enough for Wisconsin offensively to be able to match Ohio State point for point. It might only take 17 to win this one, and that might be all Ohio State needs because so far their defense allowed 70 points through 7 games. It's a pretty dang good start. A couple trends to take into account. 6 of Ohio State's 7 games have gone under the total this year, and Wisconsin is 0-4 against the spread with teams with winning records in 2023. I like Ohio State to win this game, but it does feel like an awful lot of points. I think in a low-scoring affair, in a game that I think might get to the low 40s, I have a difficult time thinking that they can't keep it within the 2-touchdown margin that Vegas has lined up for.